On episode 262 of the 40 Plus Fitness podcast, we meet Beverly Lynn Bennett and discuss her book, Anti-Inflammatory Foods and Recipes. You can find the full show notes for this episode at 40plusfitnesspodcast.com/262. Have you decided you're ready to make a change? To reclaim your health and fitness? The 40 Plus Fitness podcast is here for you. I'm your host, Alan Meisner. I'm an NSAM certified personal trainer with a specialization in corrective exercise and fitness nutrition. Let me be your coach as you find your way on your health and fitness journey. All right, let's go. Hello, and thank you for being here today. I really do appreciate you being part of the 40 Plus Fitness podcast with me. So before we get started today and meet our guest, I do want to take just a couple minutes to go over a couple things because I think there's some lessons here, and I do want to make one announcement. As I said last week, I think I did complete the Spartan Super. It was a really tough race. Some things I didn't share necessarily that I think I should share because there's a learning lesson here that I really do want to put out there, particularly for those of us that are over 40, which is us. I had actually injured myself in my training. And while my trainer and I did a really, really good job of working around the injury, because it's my shoulder that I injured, the race was not as forgiving as it would be in a training situation. So when I got into the actual race situation, I did, I think, pretty much take my shoulder to the other end of that injury to the extent that I am now going to schedule some time to go see a doctor and make sure that I do the proper rehab on my shoulder. And that's kind of the lesson I want to give you is, when you face an injury, there's a couple of things that you need to consider. And the first thing on an injury is if it's just a strain or a sprain, typically you can expect a muscle to pretty much recover within a couple of weeks. And so if you give a couple of weeks off, which we did avoid working my shoulder most of the time that I trained through the end, there would be occasional situations where we would try to do a lift and I would start to feel the pinch of it or feel it kind of giving, and I'd stop immediately because I knew what to feel. I knew what I was feeling, and I knew when it wasn't right and when it was right. And so when it was not muscle soreness at that point, I knew it was a little bit more serious. Probably have at least a partial tear based on the pain that I'm experiencing. But yeah, the Super was probably not the best idea for me. But, again, being a guy and not always following my own advice, I went ahead and did it anyway. And I toughed it out. I grinded it out. And I think I did tell you about Nick last week and how instrumental he was in kind of motivating me to push through and get done. But that said, I do have an injury and I am going to see a doctor, which I would encourage you, if you have an injury, rest it, ice it, that kind of thing. And if it doesn't start to heal fairly quickly, you know that you've got something a little bit more serious, and it's time for you to go ahead and get medical attention. Your trainer's not going to be able to do this for you. A general PT could probably do a few things to help you out, but in a lot of cases, you really just need to go to the doctor and get a proper diagnosis of the injury so that you can do appropriate rehab. And I'm going to go through that process, and I'll probably share pieces of that with you as we go through the future of the podcast. So I'd encourage you to kind of stick with me here as we go forward, because I'm going to take some time with this and use this as a learning opportunity for both of us. Another thing I wanted to announce, and I'm pretty excited about, was over the course of the last few months, couple of months anyway, I've been working to earn another certification for, actually this one's for online personal training. So this one was specifically designed to give me some guidance on how to properly manage and run an online personal training. And I've been doing that off and on. I do turn on and off because I can't always be doing this. There's a lot of other things going on. Like I said, over the summer I have the training. I also have the personal, the fitness stuff I'm going to be doing for Keto Fest. So if you're up in the Northeast or you're really interested in keto, Carl and Richard are two guys that do the Two Keto Dudes podcast, and they are putting on a Keto Fest. And this is a pretty cool thing where they're literally going to take the whole town of New London, Connecticut, and turn it keto for the most part. They've gotten a lot of the restaurants to step in and make sure that they're going to have at least one keto dish on their menu. There's going to be a pig roast and all kinds of stuff going on Saturday on July 15th, and that's when I'll be doing the fitness classes in the square. There's going to be a nice little grassy space there to do some outside fitness classes, and I've got several of those that are planned. And then Sunday is kind of the science thing, and that's where we can sit down and really get a good grasp, good understanding of what ketosis is, what it means to you medically and biologically, and what it can do for you. So if you're interested in keto, if you are someone who goes into ketosis and uses ketosis but wants to learn more, really enjoys the science and the learning, or you're just someone who wants to go meet other people that are in the same general way of eating lifestyle that you are, do check out ketofest.com. It's a really cool thing. I really am glad that Richard and Carl are able to pull this off, because it is a really cool thing. And they've been cool enough and nice enough to let me be one of their fitness trainers that day. So I do have several classes going on, and we are going to book those up. So if you're interested, go to ketofest.com. And once you get there, if you don't see a way to sign up for the fitness classes, just shoot me a message, and I will make sure that you make it on the list for one of the workouts that you want to do. That said, let's meet our guest. Now, our guest today is an experienced vegan chef and baker, a writer, and an animal advocate who is passionate about showing the world how easy, delicious, and healthy it is to live and eat as a vegan. Beverly is the author of numerous books, including Almond Flour, Spiralized Kale, The Nutritional Powerhouse, Chia, and The Vegan Bites. With no further ado, I introduce you to Beverly Lynn Bennett. So Beverly, welcome to 40 Plus Fitness.
Hi, Alan. It's great to talk to you. Thanks for having me.
I was really excited to see your book, and I think one of the main reasons is that inflammation is kind of one of those terms that we hear a lot about because we know it's bad when it's bad, and but it's actually a very healthy thing for our body to have. It's a healing mechanism, but it gets out of control for a lot of people, causes a lot of problems for us. And in dealing with my doctor, when we talk about my blood work, looking at my level of inflammation is kind of one of those top of mind things that he just keeps me really focused on. So I like the fact now that I have a tool sitting on my bookshelf that I can go to when I go in and my blood tests aren't quite right. It's like, okay, I need to add some of Beverly's recipes to my repertoire to make sure that I'm taking care of myself in the best possible way.
Yep. So like they say, let food be thy medicine,
Exactly. And I think more and more people are actually recognizing that. And so basically this is your medicine chest sitting on your bookshelf, or sitting better sitting in your kitchen, because you're using it so frequently you don't want to walk it back and forth. So Beverly, you have a pretty compelling story about inflammation gone bad, and how you've used lifestyle and food to change that. Can you kind of talk about your story, and then what some of the things that you did basically to heal yourself?
Okay. Well, I'm a vegan chef and baker, and so I've worked in kitchens for decades. And the last time I worked in a kitchen was here in Eugene, and I just moved here, so I was all excited. I had a new job, filling out, and I was up on a little step ladder, getting a big 5-gallon jug of olive oil off a shelf that was way above my head, and of course it was heavy, so it came on towards me. I fell on what they call a 3-compartment sink in the restaurant biz, which is a hard metal big sink. It's not like your normal household sink. It's really big and painful. And I fell and bounced off of that twice, and then fell in a space that was about 3 feet wide. So I was kind of like felt like I was a robot. I saw things snapping and popping, and I was actually kind of twitching and afraid to move. And eventually got to the doctor, and I found out that I had seriously injured my back and pretty much the whole back side of my whole body. I have now what's called a permanently compressed L1 vertebrae, and at L5 and S1 I have, they call it degenerative disc disease, slipping the spine, lots of different things, but pretty much I'm going to have problems with my posture, standing, mobility for the rest of my life. The first doctor I went to was one that was all about surgery. So his thing was just why don't you get some cortisone shots? I'll do a back surgery on you. You may not heal. You may or may not end up being paralyzed afterwards. But that was his first approach. I didn't like that. I didn't even like taking the drugs that they prescribed immediately after my injury. I knew there had to be something different, so I did go for the physical therapy, and that did help me a little bit. But once I switched doctors and got into one more that was more open to, like, as they would say, alternative therapies, getting more massages, definitely physical therapy definitely helps, yoga, stretching. And then I started doing research myself into, like, foods, because I knew there was, like, things that people commonly take, like the MSM and glucosamine and things like that. But a lot of those, as a vegan, I had to read the labels, because a lot of those things, come from shellfish sources, or they wanted you to take things that were cartilage from other animals. And being a vegan, I didn't want to do that. So I just kept doing research until I started to find out about anti-inflammatory foods. And that's the kind of way I started approaching things. I just started including more in my diet. I learned which ones gave me better relief and which ones didn't. I just really, took control of my own health myself, instead of just letting, the doctor tell me what I should do and what I shouldn't do. And that's when I really started to see a change, because I kind of stayed at a steady, they were like, you're only going to stay at this level. You're not going to improve anymore. Actually, your back injury will probably become worse. And that was, that was in 2002. So for me, it hasn't gotten any worse. I think actually my mobility has improved since I started changing my diet. And that I started doing probably about at least 10 years ago. And now every day I constantly try to make sure I eat a lot of anti-inflammatory foods. And it's really kind of easy. We'll kind of get into that when we talk more about the recipes in the book. Because I start from, the beginning of the first thing in the day is I make myself, really good super green smoothies with a lot of anti-inflammatory foods in them. And I think it works for me personally, instead of having to take some people think, oh, I'll just take a pain reliever every day and then that's the way I'll deal with it. But those can cause issues. I think we may touch on that later. But I don't like to pop a pill. I'd rather have something that was real food, real sources, things I know what they are, and there's a lot less side effects from eating a carrot or some ginger than it is from popping aspirin every day.
And I think that's part of the point here is your doctor, unfortunately, because he can't prescribe a green smoothie. He could, but how many people are gonna be compliant on that? Whereas they know if you wake up in pain, you'll go ahead and pop those extra strength Tylenols, because that's going to reduce your inflammation, and that's going to therefore reduce your pain. So I want to take just a minute. At the beginning of your book, you do go through a kind of a little primer. And so if you'll bear with me, I want to go through and I want to talk about kind of the process of what's going on. And this is an important process in our body, because inflammation is intended to be a tool of our body for repair and healing. Now, with your back injury, obviously that was something that really almost no amount of healing was going to solve some of those problems, because you quite frankly had broken something that was not going to heal as well and be as strong later. But most of the time when we injure ourselves, our bodies do have a great way of kind of repairing. So what you're doing with your foods is effectively just making sure that you don't have a chronic situation where your body's trying to heal something that it really can't. So it's just like it keeps trying, a little train that could, but this train's not going to make it over the hill necessarily, but it keeps you in a bad little state. And so I want to kind of talk about that. Now, so some of these words I'm going to probably mispronounce, because they're hard words to pronounce, and you see them written, you're like, okay, I got to think about that for a minute. But I want to go into these, because I think it's important for folks to know kind of the process of what's happening here. So that when they start hearing certain terms when they're talking to their doctor, particularly if they've had an injury, they'll kind of understand what's going on here and why the medicines are stopping these processes. And if there's a reason for you to have the process, you don't necessarily necessarily want to stop it. So now the first one is histamines, and what histamines do is they're kind of, you start with these preparatory substances. They're going to go in and tell your body, okay, we're in hurt, we're in pain. There's something bad that's happened, and we need to heal. So we need to get everybody charged up, everything going to make sure that we do what we have to do to heal. So the histamines basically are going to allow the blood vessels to be a little bit more porous, and that's going to make sure that the fighter cells, the white cells and whatnot, are going to be able to get where they need to get to do the work that they need to do. And so there's going to be some swelling and redness, and most people will hear histamines more commonly referred to during a period of time when they're dealing with allergies and whatnot, because these histamines get those white blood cells engaged and say, hey, there's something going on, red flag, let's get moving. Now, after that, you basically have these eicosanoids, and the eicosanoids kind of continue this process, again, making the situation where the white blood cells kind of generally know, okay, I've got an injury we got to go deal with. There might be some infection that we're going to have to deal with, some microbes we need to clean up. So they're going to get down there, and they're going to really kind of open things up and get everything moving. And then you have the cytokines. Now, the cytokines, they're the ones that sit there and tell the fighter cells, okay, accumulate here. This is where the main point of the injury is. This is where we need to spend our time, and this is what we need to clean up and get working. And then there's a thing called C-reactive proteins. And the reason this is important, because these are the ones that really say, that's a bad thing, this is part of us. Now, because of the way all of these preparatory substances work, they're only in our system sometimes only for seconds until they've done their job, and then they pretty much just die away. But the C-reactive proteins tend to stick around a little bit longer and can actually be measured in your blood for a few days. So if you go in for a blood test and you have your doctor specifically test this, they'll be able to tell what your level of overall inflammation has been for at least the last couple days. And if that's elevated, then they know something's going on, and they might ask you, have you been sick the last couple days? Did you injure yourself? Have you had allergies or anything like that? Because a C-reactive protein, without really having that acute issue, tells the doctor, okay, your body's fighting something. And so you're in a state of inflammation, and this could get chronic if you don't address whatever it is that's bothering you, which again is why we get to the foods, because these foods are going to help kind of solve some of this problems. Now, the active fighters, you may hear the term leukocytes, and all those basically are the white blood cells. They're going to come in and do the job. They're the white knights that protect you. They're going to eat the microbes, most of the primary microbes, and they're going to get in there and make sure that if there's infection, if there's things, they're cleaning up, and they're getting all this organized. And then another thing that happens is a term you hear called free radicals. Now, free radicals in a general sense, if we have them all the time in a chronic situation, is a bad thing. You can think of these like chlorine bleach in your body, or hydrogen peroxide in your body. And that's not a substance that you want around a whole lot. It's fine when you've turned your ankle and you need to get the infection down, get the swelling down, and get everything kind of healing. But right. So for that initial cleanup, those are great. But you need, after you're through cleaning, you need to get rid of those because they're toxic to us. And so if you're going through a chronic state, you have those free radicals in your system all the time, which is, again, kind of goes back to the value of these foods, because these foods are going to give us the nutrients necessary to neutralize those free radicals and get them out of our system. So it does come down to lifestyle and food choices that are going to be your best friend in making sure that this process functions really, really well. So now, let's say we have an inflamed situation and all this stuff has already happened. All these things are out there doing their thing. Now, there's a hormone called cortisol that's basically going to start the process of turning things off. And so it's going to allow basically for certain cells to kind of power down, if you will, so that the body can really start healing itself. And so you'll hear you don't really want much cortisol in your system. And the reality is cortisol is really, really important when you need it. But having it all the time, again, basically makes it less effective overall. It turns off a lot of processes in your body that you want on. So you want this inflammation period to go up, and then you want it to heal, and then you want it gone. And so that's, again, why it's really important, because cortisol, when it's needed, is good, but all the time is not. And then there's resolvins that basically, once everything's done, they need to get those white blood cells out of your system, because you don't need these hoodlums running around the neighborhood after you've done what you need to do to clean things up. They can go ahead and go away. And so the resolvins kind of help get that out of the way. And then the protectins come in and kind of get the cells back to doing what they're supposed to be doing. So that whole healing process now is occurring, and swelling's going down, you're feeling better, you're able to walk on your sprained ankle and whatnot. But the only reason I bring all this up is just to realize that this process of inflammation is not something that you just avoid all the time, which means if you sprain your ankle, taking an anti-inflammatory is not actually the best thing for you to do. Let the inflammation go through its process, let it heal your ankle, and then you're good. But if you find yourself in a situation with chronic, I definitely don't think, I agree with you, I don't think medication is really the right answer. I think lifestyle and food are really what should be your first choices. And then obviously,
it's not bad to take one occasionally. If like you have a severe amount of pain that day. Some days I just wake up a lot stiffer than other days.
To manage pain,
I did push myself too much. Yeah,
absolutely, I agree. Pain management, and we've had a couple. I had a couple podcasts on pain management, and realizing yes, pain management is an important topic, particularly as we get older. But that doesn't need to be your everyday go-to.
Right.
I'm going to wake up every morning and pop my Advil. And then I'm good to go for 8 hours when I'll need another. It really is saying, okay, there are other things that you can do to reduce your need for that medication. And I want to get into that. So now, one of the things that kind of comes up when you do have a situation of chronic inflammation is it causes some other health consequences. Could you go through some of the other health consequences that we need to be concerned about if we find ourselves in a state of chronic inflammation?
Well, it's kind of our body's really like the most amazing machine. So it's like something's wrong, out of balance, and other things can go wrong until you get them fixed. So like if you're finding a lot of inflammation, there could be an increased incidence of cancer, because then it becomes more fertile. Your body becomes a more fertile ground for cancerous cell activity. It can also cause diabetes because your insulin levels can increase. Especially if you're, we'll get into it in a minute, especially if you eat too many nuts and seeds that are with omega-6 versus omega-3, because omega-3s are much better for fighting. They're more anti-inflammatory, and omega-6 are more pro-inflammatory. So that's kind of an interesting study that they've kind of like tied that kind of thing together. Let's see, what's it? Certain enzyme like D5D. Like they've already identified what the thing is, and they actually think that also affects your blood vessels. And so then they kind of tied that. Well, maybe there's also then a tie also to heart disease. So then you could have a whole bunch of different things like that. You could start to get blood clots. You could actually have a artery rupture, or just have a little spasm. You could even actually develop an irregular heartbeat, which could lead to a heart attack. They've also noticed that there's also kind of a tie to Alzheimer's, kind of an interesting thing. They found that the people that also have the highest levels of omega-6 also have a greater incidence of Alzheimer's disease. And then flipping it the opposite way, the ones that had the lowest levels of omega-3s didn't have that kind of a problem.
Yeah.
And then let's see. Then, like you were covering with the histamines, there's a lot of autoimmune diseases like lupus, rheumatoid arthritis. They also think like allergies, asthma, which are basically like inflammations going on for particular things. Either it's your sinuses or your lungs or your throat. Joint pain. You can even have skin issues. I notice that happens to me sometimes when I've pushed myself a little bit too much. I'll start to have issues with my skin. Some people actually, they can't handle the pain so much they even become depressed. And we don't want to get on to how people deal with that. Then it also can actually show you. Actually age you because you're like the cells aren't regenerating themselves As I said, it already can affect your skin, which will also make you look older, but you also start to feel older. You're supposed to feel more run down the more inflammation you're dealing with. Even though inflammation is, they came up with a cute little word. They call it inflammaging, because, inflammation is a natural thing that's going to happen to all of us as we age, because it's just the way it is. Your machine is winding down. It's like, okay, I've lived a long, hard life. I've worked hard. I'm ready to kind of wind down and ease out. So, everyone's going to deal with a little bit of inflammation, whether it's chronic to an extreme level or just a low level. All depends on, different things like, your activity levels, what you're eating, different things in your environment, whether you smoke, even what kind of prescriptions you take. It's kind of like a weird, you could be a bad endless cycle, or you can turn it around and try to make your cycle be a good cycle, so that and you also need to just listen to your body. That's what I've learned to do. Pay attention to, how I feel, what hurts, what doesn't hurt. And I also learned in physical therapy, a lot of things that you do in a normal day that you don't realize put pressure on my joints in my bones, just the way I sit, the way I stand, the way I walk. They taught me different things. I never would have thought, putting your elbows and leaning on your elbow when you're at the computer, you might think, oh, okay, I'm getting a little carpal tunnel, but that is actually putting pressure on your back and your hips and your joints. And for me, that causes mobility issues, stiffness and things like that, and swelling. And so it's kind of I thought that's why I really enjoyed working on this book, because I already knew about what was happening with me, and it was good to learn that I wasn't the only one that has these kind of symptoms and experiences. Because sometimes you feel all alone in your pain, and it's good to know that others may be suffering with you, and then you can learn what others are trying, and which is something I constantly am reading and doing, is trying to see what other people do, and I constantly try new things, and things that didn't work, I stopped doing. Things that do work, I keep trying and keep, fine-tuning them. And then especially as you come from a fitness background, for me, definitely the days that I don't do yoga or some kind of stretching, my muscles tell me the next day in my joints. Yeah. I'm even tighter, stiffer, Yeah, the first half hour of the day, sometimes I can spring out of bed, and other days it's I feel much older than I am. Yeah. Depending on what I did the day before.
And I think that's astute. I mean, for folks, and I say this on here all the time. You are your own experiment, and there are so many different things going on at once in your body. You're exposed to so many things, whether you're choosing to eat it or choosing to smoke it or choosing or not choosing it because it's just introduced into your environment. By someone else. It could be the fluoride or chlorine in your water. It could be what the factory down the road has pumped into the air that day. It can be what's in your cosmetics. It can be, the road work they're doing outside your house and the fumes and things that are coming off of that. And just kind of recognizing how your body reacts to those things is really kind of the mechanism for you to know what's good for you and what's not. And you brought it up perfectly. Your skin is probably one of the best mirrors for you to know, at least from a general perspective, your health. Your eyes are as well, and so if you look yourself deep in the eyes in the morning, you look at your skin, that's right there. That's like a report card that you get every morning to tell you how your day before was. And so getting good sleep and eating right, I think really are kind of two hallmarks, but there's a lot more to it with this little experiment that we're going through called life. And the cool thing is when the experiment involves food, there's often some really, really good recipes involved. And if you choose to, and this book is kind of one of those things where here's your opportunity to choose good food in a great recipe. And so, Beverly, if you were going to share some of your favorite recipes from the book, what would those be?
Let's see. Well, of course, like everybody else, I'm into my smoothies. I either drink a green smoothie or have a smoothie bowl every day. And I'm lucky here in Oregon. But they grow fresh turmeric only about 30 miles away.
That's
And
awesome.
I buy organic fresh turmeric. And so I put fresh turmeric and fresh ginger in our smoothies. And we have like a super smoothie, like every day. I vary the greens, because you want to think about oxalates and stuff like that. If oxalates are an issue for you. Plus, it's always good to switch things up.
Yeah.
So I always have a leafy green. I always add some kind of berries. I always add something, like apples or pears. And I always, of course, rotate things seasonally. But then, you can always have things also in your freezer. I also try to include tropical fruits like either papaya or pineapple. Let's see. I don't put any of those protein powders that some people do because I kind of think about all foods have some kind of protein. I'm not one of those people that always is concerned about that I get enough, because I kind of know that I'm getting enough because I try to eat a wide variety of diet. So I love having that in the morning, and that's also a great way. I can put sometimes almost every ingredient I'm putting in my smoothie or smoothie bowl is an anti-inflammatory. So I'm already tipping the scale to the good side, and then I'm always telling people, eat the rainbow. That's one of my favorite phrases ever, is to explain that you should eat a wide variety of colorful fruits, veggies, nuts, grains, whole seeds, the whole shebang. Think eating the rainbow. Make sure you get as many colors in a day. So that's why I titled one of my salads, Eat the Rainbow Salad. And it has, every color in it, because I don't usually make just a plain lettuce salad. I like to use a lot of things like rainbow chard and different colors of kale and different colors of beets and carrots and things like that. And then that comes with a curried sesame dressing, because I kind of really like those kind of dressings. Okay. Because all the recipes in the book, just in case anybody wonders, I don't have an issue with gluten, but some people do have an issue with gluten. And for some people that is actually, can be an inflammatory. I made this book, is all gluten-free recipes. So the only grains that are used are steel-cut oats. And those are used to make flour for the recipes that use a flour, or I used almond meal or almond flour. So it's good for people that do that. So then I had to think, okay, what am I going to do for sandwiches? And so that's when I don't know if you've ever had a collard roll where you use the collard green leaf, like a taco shell or a wrap or a tortilla. And so I did a tempeh Reuben with that. And there's also recipes for homemade sauerkraut and homemade pickles in the book, because fermented foods have also been shown to be beneficial. And I love that recipe. And let's say I'm a big chocoholic, so I have a chocolate cake that has cacao nibs and nuts on it. And I also wrote a book on chia seeds, so I've been a big fan of them for quite a few years. So there's really good cherry almond chia pudding with dried fruit. And one thing that I make almost every week for me and my husband is what I call a skillet supper. That's whatever kind of produce I have that I need to use up before I hit the farmer's market. I tend to make those on Fridays because I hit the farmer's market on Saturday, use up whatever you've got. So it has sweet potatoes and greens and peppers and I think jalapenos in it. So that's another one of my favorite recipes. My husband's he's Italian, so he loves eating lentil stews. So I did a roasted winter squash, lentil and kale stew in there. And speaking of recipes, my publisher did a really cool thing. We actually highlighted each anti-inflammatory ingredient in a different color. So when you get to the recipes, you can see that and go, okay, boom, there I go. I'm going to get this, this, and this. And it kind of makes it easy to make sure that, you're covering all your bases and things like that. And I thought that was a really, really smart little trick that they did.
Well, it is. Because like you said, we need diversity in our food. And if blueberries are the only anti-inflammatory that you're eating every day, you're not touching all your nutrient bases. So
right.
Picking up some of these other foods and making sure they're a part of your daily plan is really smart.
Right. Yeah, and that's why a lot of people don't think they think a juice, when they make a smoothie, they just always want to use either water or some kind of non-dairy milk. A lot of times I mix it up and I do part of a non-dairy milk and then I do part of like I often buy like this superfood juice. So then it has like things like pomegranate juice and cherries and all sorts of berries, and I think it even has acai and things like that. So I can get a lot more variety just from one product, and then it's boosting what I'm having.
Yeah.
I kind of try to think about things like that way. Try to get the most bang for my buck. That's why when you go to the store, if you get like a mixed berry blend instead of just buying one berry, you're going to get what each of those berries have, their own little thing they're bringing to the party. And that way you're getting it all at once instead of like, okay, making sure, did I eat blueberries today? Okay, no. Okay, then tomorrow I should have cherries. And it makes it much easier when you think of things like that. Try to save yourself a little bit of time that way.
Yeah. And so, I think, even if you're not going to go the pure vegan route, I think all of us can kind of agree we need more vegetables in our diet. And the cool thing is these are delicious. There's a mixes of sweet and savory and ways that you can get more vegetables into your diet. And the foods that are chosen to be in these recipes are anti-inflammatory and thereby anti-aging and anti-disease. So,
yep.
I mean, really, all in one, and just a great opportunity
Fiber,
for you to
the whole shebang.
build out your repertoire and try something delicious and new. So, Beverly, I really appreciate you coming on the show today. If someone wanted to reach out to you, learn more about you, or learn more about this book or the other wonderful books that you've written, where would you like for me to send them?
Well, they could go to my website, which is veganchef.com, and that lists has a page with all the different books that I've written. I just finished number 15. Hopefully this week. Hopefully today. I was going to say we're in the editing of two number 14 to 15. So it's like each day. It's like I hope it's almost done. And then you can also go to. I've written idiots guides, but those aren't as wonderful as the ones that I write now for Book Publishing Company, and their website is bookpubco.com, and they through them you can see all the different books that I've written for them. I think it'll be like number 8. I've written 8 by the end of the summer for them, and then you can find me on Amazon. But if you go through my page, you can click through to Amazon, and then I'll get a kickback.
Okay, great. Well, this is, yes, I do. Well, this is going to be episode 262. So you can go to 40plusfitnesspodcast.com/262, and I will have all the links that Beverly just mentioned there. So again, Beverly, thank you so much for being a part of 40 Plus Fitness.
Oh, thank you so much, Alan. I really enjoyed talking with you today.
If you enjoyed today's podcast, would you please take a moment and share it with friends and family? You can send them to 40plusfitnesspodcast.com/podcast, or send them to 40plusfitnesspodcast.com/262 for this particular episode. Even though this show is geared towards the 40 plus crowd, I do think there's something with the people that I feature, the books I feature, that there is something for everybody. And so I do hope that you would share it with friends and family. Thank you. Next time on the 40 Plus Fitness Podcast, we meet Dr. Naisha Winters and Jess Higgins Kelly and discuss their book, The Metabolic Approach to Cancer. This is a really good one, so I do hope you come back for that. Until then, have a happy and healthy week.